Look at things that are within your control, quote unquote within your control, and things that are outside of your control. Assalamu alaikum. Got a question from Hasana, and Hasana writes, I just finished an MSc in neuroscience last year and spent the past few months debating between med school and a PhD. I love them both. I'm a woman, close to 30, I'm not married. So a lot of things give me anxiety. What about marriage? Kids? What about doing something for the world and being a researcher and a doctor? Any advice? I'm really struggling with this. Okay, so the way I would approach the situation, which is kind of what I did with my particular situation, because Hasana posted this as a question in the video where I talk about going into medical school. Look at things that are within your control, quote unquote within your control, and things that are outside of your control. Again, we're going to bring it back to this circle of influence, circle of concern. What is within your control? What's within your control are the pursuits with regards to career and education. The direction that you take, that's within your control, because you have to make some choices. It's outside of your control whether you accomplish any of these things. Marriage, that's not necessarily within your control, because as in Arabic we say qism wa nasib. It's maktub, as Paulo Coelho wrote in The Alchemist, this idea of maktub. It's qadar. Who you're gonna marry eventually is already written for you. So while you do go out and meet people and try to, maybe connect with somebody, ultimately, whether you get married or not, this is one of those blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that could come your way, or tests and tribulations that can come your way. And that's not within your control necessarily. So, the stress about marriage, I don't know if I would agree too much with that, because there's this, I think part of the reason we have problems with marriage problems is because people force it. You're forcing things to happen when, it's maybe not the right time. It's almost like, scattered thoughts. It's almost like a thief. They go and they steal the money. That money was coming to them anyways. Had they waited, they would have gotten it through lawful means. But instead they hastened and they wanted to get it quickly, and so they went through illicit means to get it. The same thing with marrying the quote-unquote wrong person, or it's because you're trying to force it. You're trying to get to, because the societal pressure is about like, oh, by this time you need to have married somebody, and by this time you need to have kids, and by this time you need to do that, and this, I don't know. So it's outside of your control. You don't have control over when or where or who you'll meet. That you two will connect, inshallah, soon at some point, somebody who's a pious person who's going to have taqwa of Allah with you. So I wouldn't concern myself too much with this. That's not to say that your feelings are invalid. I mean, Adam alayhi salam, when Allah created him, he felt this loneliness. And so by nature, human beings, خلق منها زوجها ومن آياته خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها. That is from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He has created for you mates from amongst yourselves so that you can gain tranquility with each other. So you have this kind of emotional drive that you would like to meet somebody, but I wouldn't stress too much about, oh, I need to get married by this time or whatever. And kids and all that. Kids, again, this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not something that you should put too much cognitive energy into, and just rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if you're meant to have children, you're going to have children. It's the bottom line. But something within your control and not at the same time, your career, education, and educational pursuits. You really have to sit down and look at what it takes for a PhD and what it takes for medical school. Medicine is a vocation, a calling, vocation. It's a calling. It's something that you absolutely feel driven towards. It's something that, for me, the reason I pursued it is because there was something nagging in the back of my mind. By the time you're 45, 50 years old, 60 years old, do you want to look back at your life and think, regrets, what if I could have, should have, done this or done that? Did I have what it take? I mean, it's one thing for you to try and fail. At least you tried. You know, when you speak about it in the future, if Allah grants you life, you will speak about something that you've tried, versus I didn't even try, and so I'm left with this vague notion of like, I don't know if I could have, or you know, this regret. I don't want that regret in my life. And so for me, medicine was something that I felt towards the end of my PhD that I was just being pulled towards. Like this is something I feel like I need to get into. I can't explain it, but it's just a calling. So that's the emotional aspect of it. The logistical aspect of it is, do I have what it takes? Well, the first thing you need to figure out is the MCAT. You know, basically all medical schools in the West require you to write this medical college admission test, the MCAT, and they have a new version of it. And it's like 7 hours or whatever. So, you know, prepare for it, go write it. That test has been, some studies have shown that it is predictive of how well you will do in the board exams. When you finish, you go through your, if you're in the States, you do the USMLEs, or other places you have the board exams. It's predictive of how well you do in the board exams. And that's why medical schools have a cutoff point. If you do below this, if you get below a certain score, they won't take you, because you might be able to get through the courses and the material, but when it comes to the actual licensing exams, you won't pass. So, or a high chance of you not passing. So that's what the MCAT is about. You got to write the MCAT. There are certain dates for that. You need certain time period to prepare for it. I took 6 months just out to sit down and just study and prepare and do the practice tests and all of that. And then I went and wrote it. Alhamdulillah, 4 weeks later, I got a score. I did really well. So that was like a sign for me, like, all right, so I got what it takes. I'm well above what the minimum is. I'm like on the higher end of the percentiles. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and apply, and I have the GPA, I have the extracurricular activity, I have all of this stuff together. Let's apply and see what happens. And so I looked at different options, and Allah just decided, you know, for me, the choice became clear that I needed to be here. So I came to Australia, and now I'm doing it over here. I'm pursuing all of this, and I'm taking the measures and the steps to see if the door is going to open. So I'm knocking, you know, I'm knocking on the door of this thing. If the door was closed, I would entertain something else that is also along the lines of what I'm interested in and what I wanted to do. So let's say that medicine is a calling for you and you really want to do this, but you don't know. So you knock on the doors, let's say it opens, then you pursue that. If it doesn't open, you still have the PhD route. Or even if it opens, once you enter medical school, there's all of these different research opportunities. You can do a combined MD, PhD. You can do whatever you want to do. I mean, there's a lot of things that they offer you. But let's say that that doesn't work out. You pursue the PhD. You've done research, you've done a master's, so you understand what this lifestyle is about, and you're going more into the academic researcher route versus the medical route. Both of them have different lifestyles, and that's another thing you have to take into account. What kind of lifestyle would you like for yourself? And even within medicine, depending on the specialty, I mean, initially as a medical student, you're going to be busy. There's going to be a lot of time management skills that you're going to have to, you know, adopt. It's not like research. It's a lot of material, and so you're going to have to figure that out. But beyond that, once you actually start training, depending on where you are in the world, and once you become a fully licensed doctor, depending on the specialty that you're in, whether it's primary care or specialty or a specialist, it's going to require some certain time commitments. But overall, it's a time-intensive period, and it's going to be very demanding on your time. The lifestyle is different. You're going to have to maneuver around things, and even some events you're going to have to just apologize and say, you know, regretfully I can't attend because I got to study, or I got to prepare for this, or I got to be in the clinic, or whatever the case may be. So it's a lifestyle choice that you're going to have to make. If it's a calling, you won't care about these things because that to you is like, I need to do this. Academic lifestyle, PhD, it's a different lifestyle. Different time commitments, different things. And so you're gonna have to take that into account. Once you kind of look at all of these things, first you do your efforts. You also have to find a supervisor. You're not guaranteed to get into a PhD program either. You're gonna have to find a supervisor with work that you're interested in, who would also accept you as a student, and then you can start off with that. If you look at things in that way, I think you might find yourself funneling down into narrowing down to a particular choice that would resonate with you more. Ultimately though, think about the future in the sense of those things that are within your control, where you do have choices to make. I'm not talking about things that are outside of your control, whether you meet someone or not, or whether you get married or not, or these things are, you have the illusion of control over them, but not necessarily. But these things, you know, the choices of which education path you go to or which career path you go to, these are more immediate for you right now, and they're within your circle of influence. You don't want to look in the future, look back at this time and think, did I have what it take? Should I have done this or should I have done that? You don't want to have resentment towards yourself, most of all. And with regards to, I mean, now I'm just going to stop it at that instead of digging a hole for myself with regards to the marriage stuff. But anyways, I hope that helps you, Hasana. Let me know how it works out. Good luck with whatever it is that you decide to do. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.